Part 1. Light Before the Shadows. In the hallways of Lancaster High School, there was a girl who could make every eye pause, not because she was loud, but because of the way she moved, as if each dance step told a story yet to be heard. Ikari Hood, 17 years old, a dancer, a sister, and, most recently, a mother. But just 3 weeks after cradling her newborn daughter in her arms, her life was stolen by someone she once trusted. Welcome to Shadows of Crime. If you've never heard this story, hit that subscribe button now because what we're about to uncover might change how you see the people you hold dear. Southeast Oak Cliff, Dallas, January 2024. A modest neighborhood where big dreams are nurtured in small homes. This is where Ikari Hood grew up, one of 8 siblings in a tight-knit family. She was the heart of family gatherings, the one who organized impromptu talent shows, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays. But above all, Ikari was a dancer. At Lancaster High, she was a star of the Tigerette drill team, her fluid movements convincing coaches she was destined for stages far beyond Dallas. Ikari didn't just dance to perform. Every step was a declaration of her dreams: graduate high school, attend college, become a professional dancer. In her bedroom, she kept notebooks filled with choreography ideas, her phone's watch history brimming with videos of college dance teams. She researched scholarships, mapped out her future. "I want to stand on big stages," she told her friends, "and I'm going to make it happen." December 2023 changed Ikari's life forever. She became a mother to a baby girl, Iceland. For many, motherhood at 17 might seem like a setback, but for Ikari, it was fuel. "Watch me," she told friends as she returned from the hospital. "I'm going to show my daughter what's possible." Her bedroom became a sanctuary where art and motherhood intertwined. A crib stood beside her dance trophies, baby clothes shared drawer space with leotards. She'd rock Iceland gently while watching dance competitions, whispering to her newborn about the moves they'd practice together one day. Ikari's phone gallery told the story of this new chapter. Videos of her choreography were interspersed with Iceland's first smiles. Dance costume sketches sat alongside baby outfit ideas. She curated a playlist for her daughter, soft songs with just enough rhythm for Ikari to practice subtle movements while holding her child. Becoming a mother didn't dim her dreams, it amplified them. "I'm planning further now," she told her sister. "I want to open my own dance studio someday, where young mothers can bring their kids while they practice." At Lancaster High, Ikari was more than a dancer. She was a force. Between classes, students would stop to watch her practice, her body flowing with a grace that seemed impossible for someone so young. Her instructors called it rare, the ability to make complex routines look effortless. Off the school grounds at the Next Level community dance group in Dallas, she earned a reputation for her work ethic. Ikari was hungry to grow, one coach recalled, always the first to arrive, the last to leave. Her talent wasn't just a hobby, it was her ticket to a bigger world. At home, Ikari was the vibrant center of her family. As one of 8 siblings, she learned early how to stand out while lifting others up. Family gatherings showcased her playful side. The serious dancer transformed into the goofy sister who would orchestrate living room talent shows, teaching her younger siblings routines she'd crafted herself. "Ikari was our connector," her mother Takoya Lester said, "the one who made sure nobody felt left out." Her siblings described a sister who could shift from confidant to comedian in seconds, living by a simple rule: family rises together. Dance was Ikari's planned future. Her shelves were lined with notebooks of choreography, her dreams mapped out in meticulous detail. She spoke openly about joining a prestigious collegiate dance program after graduation, her high school dance director already discussing which schools would best nurture her talent. Her potential was limitless, the director admitted. "We saw her going professional." Ikari's hunger for that future was insatiable, her determination a quiet fire that burned through every obstacle. But even as Ikari's star rose, shadows lingered in her life. For 2 years, she'd been in an on-again, off-again relationship with Trayvon Wright, a 17-year-old boy whose presence brought both highs and lows. To those who knew them, their relationship was a roller coaster, passionate reconciliations followed by painful breakups. There were whispers of trouble, moments of control and volatility that only became clear in hindsight. Ikari's family later revealed a history of domestic violence, though the details remained private. These were the fracture lines in her story, hidden beneath her radiant smile. When Ikari became pregnant, Trayvon believed he was the father. For months, he embraced the role publicly, his identity tied to the child he thought was his. Ikari, too, carried the weight of that assumption, her dreams expanding to include motherhood. But in December 2023, after Iceland's birth, a paternity test arrived in the mail. Its results threatening to unravel everything. Ikera knew the truth would change her relationship with Trayvon, but she believed she could handle the conversation. She always had. January 7, 2024 began like any other Sunday in Southeast Oak Cliff. The neighborhood hummed with the quiet rhythm of a warm winter morning, kids playing outside, church bells ringing in the distance. In the Hood household, Ikeri woke early, feeding and changing Iceland before placing her in her grandmother's care. Her bedroom, usually filled with music as she practiced dance routines, was quiet that morning. She spent nearly an hour choosing her outfit, a Lancaster high sweatshirt and jeans, standing before her mirror, rehearsing words only she could hear. Ikari had asked her mother for privacy that day. "I need to have an important conversation," she said, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a flicker of unease. "Just give us a little time alone. I have to tell him face to face." Her mother, Tekoya, agreed, trusting her daughter's judgment. She could never have imagined those would be among their last words. Ikari wasn't just preparing for a talk, she was stepping into a moment that would divide her life and her family's into before and after. What was in the envelope Ikari held so tightly? Why did its contents demand a face-to-face meeting? And how could a relationship between two teenagers so full of promise spiral into something so deadly? As the clock ticked toward 9:47 a.m. when Trayvon's text, "I'm outside," lit up Ikari's phone, the stage was set for a tragedy that would shake a community to its core. Have you ever felt a sense of dread before something terrible happened? That gut instinct that something was wrong? Drop a comment below if you believe in such premonitions. They might save a life someday. Ikari's story is more than a headline. It's a reminder that even the brightest lights can be dimmed by shadows we don't see until it's too late. As we move forward, we'll uncover the warning signs that were missed, the moments that led to that fatal Sunday, and the legacy Ikari left behind. Stay with us, because this isn't just about what happened to Ikari Hood, it's about what we can do to make sure it never happens again. Subscribe to Shadows of Crime and join us as we step into the darkness to find the truth. Part 2, Promises and Fractures. Every love story begins with a promise, a spark of hope that two people can build something beautiful together. For Ikari Hood and Trayvon Wright, that promise flickered to life 2 years ago when they were just 15, navigating the halls of Lancaster High School and the complexities of young love. But promises, like glass, can fracture under pressure, and their relationship was a fragile thing, marked by dizzying highs and devastating lows. Welcome back to Shadows of Crime. If you're just joining us, hit subscribe now, because the story of Ikari Hood is a warning that could save someone you know. Ikari was a light, vibrant, determined 17-year-old dancer whose dreams stretched far beyond Dallas. Trayvon Wright, also 17, was her opposite in many ways, intense, guarded, a boy whose confidence masked a need for control. Their relationship, spanning 2 years, was a cycle of breakups and reconciliations, each reunion laced with the hope that things would be different this time. To their friends, they were a passionate pair, their arguments fiery but fleeting. To Ikari's family, though, there were shadows beneath the surface, moments that hinted at something darker. In those 2 years, Ikari and Trayvon built a world together, one filled with shared laughter, late-night texts, and plans for a future. But that world was unstable, its foundation cracked by Trayvon's need to know where Ikari was, who she was with, what she was doing. Her family later revealed a troubling truth. There was a history of domestic violence. The specifics remained private, but the pattern was clear. Moments of jealousy, control, and emotional volatility that escalated over time. Ikari, with her boundless optimism, believed she could navigate these storms. She knew Trayvon better than anyone. She thought she could handle him. When Ikari became pregnant in early 2023, their relationship took on new weight. Trayvon embraced the role of father-to-be, at least publicly. He spoke of the baby as his identity intertwining with the idea of a family. Ikari, too, carried that belief, her dreams expanding to include motherhood. She saw her daughter as a partner in her journey, someone who'd watch her dance on bigger stages. For months, Trayvon and Ikari moved forward under this shared assumption, their volatile relationship held together by the promise of a child. But promises built on assumptions are fragile. In December 2023, after Ikari gave birth to Iceland, a paternity test arrived in the mail. The results were a seismic shock. Trayvon was not the biological father. For Ikari, this truth was complex but not devastating. She loved Iceland fiercely, and her dreams for their future remained unshaken. She believed she could share this news with Trayvon, that they could find a way forward, perhaps as friends or co-parents in spirit, if not biology. She underestimated the impact those results would have on him. For Trayvon, the paternity test was more than a scientific fact. It was a public unraveling of his identity. He had spent months building a persona as a father, a role that gave him status among peers, a sense of purpose. To learn he was not Iceland's father was to lose that role, to face questions about his masculinity, his place in Aikari's life, his standing in his own family. Domestic violence experts point out that moments of rejection or perceived betrayal are often the most dangerous in abusive relationships. When someone like Trayvon, already prone to control, feels their power slipping, the risk of violence spikes. Aikari's family later reflected on the warning signs they missed. Trayvon's excessive texting when he and Aikari were apart, his need to know her every move, the way he'd react with anger when she asserted her independence. These were not just quirks, but red flags. We saw them fight, her sister would later say, but we thought it was just teenage drama. We didn't know how deep it went. The on-again, off-again nature of their relationship created a dangerous cycle, each reconciliation masking the growing tension, each breakup widening the cracks. Aikari, for her part, was caught in a common trap. She believed her intimate knowledge of Trayvon gave her the ability to manage his reactions. She saw his anger as a storm that would pass, his control as a sign of love. Young people often mistake possessiveness for commitment, experts say, and Aikari was no exception. She wanted to believe in the boy she'd known for 2 years, the one who'd made her laugh, who'd promised to protect her. She didn't see the danger in inviting him to her home to share life-altering news. As January 7, 2024 approached, Aikari prepared for what she knew would be a difficult conversation. She had received the paternity results days earlier, the envelope sitting heavy on her desk, its contents a truth she couldn't ignore. She chose to tell Trayvon face-to-face, believing honesty was the best path. "I need to tell him in person," she told her mother, Takoya, her voice calm but resolute. "It's the right thing to do." She asked for privacy, a space to have this talk in her bedroom, with her family nearby. She thought she was prepared for every possibility. In the days leading up to that Sunday, Aikari's life was a blend of routine and anticipation. She spent her mornings with Iceland, changing diapers, singing softly, filming her daughter's tiny smiles. Her afternoons were filled with dance practice, her body moving through routines as she dreamed of college auditions. Her evenings were for family, helping her younger siblings with homework, joking with her mother in the kitchen. But the weight of the impending conversation with Trayvon lingered, a quiet undercurrent in her otherwise vibrant world. Trayvon, meanwhile, was grappling with his own reality. Though Aikari hadn't yet shared the paternity results, he may have sensed a shift. Friends later noted he'd been moodier, more withdrawn, his text to Aikari growing sharper. The idea of losing his role as a father, of facing questions from his peers, was a wound to his pride. For a 17-year-old boy already struggling with control, this was a perfect storm of triggers, immaturity, intense emotions, and a need to reclaim his narrative. Unbeknownst to Aikari, Trayvon had acquired a .38 caliber revolver 2 days before their meeting, a decision that would turn a conversation into a tragedy. On the night of January 6, Aikari sat in her room, the envelope with the paternity results in her hands. She traced the edges of the paper, her mind racing with what she'd say. She imagined Trayvon's reaction. Anger, perhaps, but also understanding. She believed they could part ways with respect, that he'd see Iceland as a blessing regardless of biology. Her optimism, her faith in the boy she'd known, blinded her to the danger. She went to bed that night with a plan, unaware that Trayvon was already plotting a different outcome. As the sun rose on January 7, Aikari woke with a sense of purpose. She fed Iceland, dressed her in a tiny onesie, and handed her to her grandmother. Her bedroom, usually alive with music, was silent as she prepared for Trayvon's arrival. She chose a simple outfit, a Lancaster High sweatshirt, jeans, standing before her mirror, rehearsing her words. "I need to be honest," she whispered to herself. "It's the only way." Her phone buzzed at 9:47 a.m., Trayvon's text lighting up the screen. "I'm outside." The moment she'd been preparing for had arrived. Have you ever known someone in a relationship that felt off, where the signs were there but too subtle to name? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Your story might help someone see what they're missing. Carrie's decision to face Trayvon alone was rooted in trust, but it was also a step into a danger she couldn't foresee. As we move to the next chapter, we'll walk through the final moments of that Sunday morning, when a single gunshot shattered a family and a community. Stay with us because understanding what happened to Ikari Hood isn't just about her story, it's about recognizing the warning signs that could save a life. Subscribe to Shadows of Crime and join us as we uncover the truth behind the shadows. Part 3, the defining moment. Some moments are so fragile, so fleeting that they shift the course of a life in an instant. For Ikari Hood, January 7, 2024, began with the quiet hope of a new day, a chance to speak her truth and move forward. But in the span of 25 minutes, her bedroom became a crime scene, her dreams silenced by a single gunshot. Welcome back to Shadows of Crime. If you're just joining us, hit subscribe now because the story we're unraveling is a stark reminder that danger can hide in the places we feel safest. It was an unusually warm Sunday morning in Dallas, the kind where winter feels like a distant memory. In the Hood household on Grandling Drive, southeast Oak Cliff, the day started with familiar rhythms. Ikari woke early, her 3-week-old daughter Iceland stirring in her crib. By 8:30 IMM, she'd fed and changed Iceland, dressing her in her grandmother's arms. Unlike most mornings, when music filled her room as she practiced dance routines, Ikari's bedroom was quiet. Today was different. Today, she was preparing for a conversation that would change everything. Ikari had asked her mother, Decoy Lester, for privacy. I need to talk to him alone, she said, her voice steady but her hands fidgeting with the hem of her sweatshirt. It's important. It won't take long. Decoy nodded, trusting her daughter's judgment. She didn't know that Ikari was about to share the results of a paternity test, a truth that would shatter the fragile balance of her relationship with Trayvon Wright. She didn't know that the boy Ikari invited into her home was carrying a .38 caliber revolver, its weight heavy in his jacket pocket. By 9:00 AM, Ikari was in her room choosing her outfit with care. A Lancaster High sweatshirt, faded jeans, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She stood before her mirror, rehearsing the words she'd practiced for days. I have to be honest, she whispered, her reflection staring back with determination. He deserves to know. On her desk, the envelope containing the paternity results sat unopened, its contents a secret she'd carried alone. She believed she could handle Trayvon's reaction, that their 2-year history gave her insight into his heart. She was wrong. At 9:47 AM, her phone buzzed, a text from Trayvon lighting up the screen. I'm outside. Ikari glanced toward the nursery where Iselin slept peacefully, unaware that her mother's next decision would alter their lives forever. I'm here, she called out to her mother, her voice steadier than her trembling hands. We'll be in my room. It shouldn't take long. Sequoia watched as Ikari led Trayvon down the hallway, the bedroom door closing with a soft click that would later haunt her memories. At 10:05 AIEM, the door locked from the inside. What happened in that room over the next 25 minutes can only be pieced together through fragments, forensic evidence, neighbor testimonies, and the partial conversation overheard by Ikari's younger brother who passed by the door twice while retrieving items from the bathroom. The first time, around 10:15, the voices inside were tense but controlled. You knew all along, didn't you? Trayvon's voice, sharp and accusatory. No, I didn't, Ikari replied, her words cut short. I thought... Don't lie to me, not anymore. The second time, 5 minutes later, the tone had escalated. Everyone's laughing at me, Trayvon shouted. My own family looks at me different now. Ikari's voice, softer but firm. Nobody's laughing, Trayvon. This doesn't have to change everything between us. Then, words that would prove chilling. Lower your voice. You're scaring me. Unbeknownst to Ikari, Trayvon had arrived with a purpose beyond confrontation. The revolver, obtained 2 days earlier, was a silent partner in his plan. As Ikari tried to salvage some form of connection to explain that Iceland was still a blessing, Trayvon's hand kept drifting to the weapon. His mind was made up before he'd even walked through the door. The paternity results weren't just a personal blow, they were a public humiliation, a threat to the identity he'd built as a father. For a 17-year-old boy wrestling with pride and control, this was a loss he couldn't accept. The exact moment when words turned to violence remains a mystery. Did Ikari see the gun before it was raised? Did she have a moment to recognize the danger, to try to flee? The only certainty is what happened at 10:30 IMN. A single gunshot, so loud it startled a neighbor's dog 3 houses away. Inside the Hood home, time stopped. Dakaya, folding laundry while watching Iceland, froze mid-match. Ikari's younger brother dropped his video game controller, his eyes wide with disbelief. For 2 heartbeats, the household held its breath, unwilling to believe the sound was what they feared. Then came the chaos. Decoya sprinted down the hallway, her voice breaking as she shouted, "I carry! I carry!" Her fist pounded against the locked door, the silence from within more terrifying than any response. She tried the handle, rattling it with desperate force, but it wouldn't budge. In a surge of maternal instinct, she raced outside, circling to the bedroom window. There, she saw the screen pushed outward onto the grass, evidence of a hasty escape. Climbing through the open window, she entered a scene no mother should ever witness. Ikari lay motionless beside her bed, blood pooling beneath her chest, her eyes open but unseeing. The room told a story of a brief struggle. A lamp knocked over, a chair pushed askew, a phone with its screen shattered on the floor. Curtains swayed from Trayvon's escape, the only sign of how recently he'd fled. Decoya fell to her knees, cradling her daughter's body, refusing to believe what her eyes confirmed. In Ikari's hand, clutched so tightly her fingers had to be pried open later, was a crumpled photograph of Iceland, taken days after her birth. Her final instinct had been to hold on to what mattered most. By 10:40 a.m., the first police cruiser screeched to a halt on Grambling Drive, responding to Decoya's frantic 911 call. Officers found a scene that would haunt even veteran responders, a young mother barely out of adolescence, her future erased in a moment of violence. Paramedics pronounced Ikari Hood dead at the scene, a single gunshot wound to the chest, fired at close range. As crime scene technicians began their work, one detective noticed the blood pattern on the floor. Unlike typical shootings, it suggested movement after the injury, as if Ikari had tried to crawl towards something. Following the trail, they found it led not to the door or window, but to her desk, where photos of Iceland were kept. She hadn't been trying to escape, she'd been reaching for her daughter's image. Outside, neighbors gathered in stunned clusters, whispers spreading through the community. Inside, a 3-week-old baby began to cry, as if sensing the absence of the voice that had soothed her since birth. Somewhere in Dallas, Trayvon Wright ran, a smoking gun in his hand, deluded by the belief that he'd restored his honor by silencing the messenger of an unwelcome truth. The hunt for him had begun, but for Ikari's family, no arrest could undo the devastation of that morning. Have you ever felt a moment when time seemed to stop, when the world shifted in an instant? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might resonate with someone watching. Ikari's final moments were a collision of trust and betrayal, a reminder that the people we let closest can sometimes pose the greatest danger. As we continue, we'll follow the investigation that tracked Trayvon Wright and the community that rallied to honor Ikari's light. Stay with us, because this story isn't just about loss. It's about the fight to ensure no one else suffers the same fate. Subscribe to Shadows of Crime and join us as we seek justice in the shadows. Part 4, Aftermath in the Hunt. A single gunshot can shatter more than a life. It can fracture a family, a community, a future. On January 7, 2024, the sound that echoed through Ikari Hood's bedroom left a void that no words could fill. As the police sirens wailed on Grambling Drive, a mother cradled her daughter's lifeless body. A 3-week-old baby cried for a mother who would never return, and a 17-year-old boy fled, believing he could outrun the truth. Welcome back to Shadows of Crime. If you're new here, hit subscribe now, because Ikari's story is a call to action that could change how we protect those we love. The Hood household, once filled with laughter and music, became a crime scene in an instant. By 10:40 a.m., Dallas police officers swarmed Grambling Drive, their radios crackling with urgency. Crime scene technicians photographed Ikari's bedroom, cataloging the chaos of a life cut short. A shattered phone, a toppled lamp, a chair pushed askew. The open window, its screen discarded on the grass, pointed to Trayvon Wright's hasty escape. But it was the small details that broke hearts. A crumpled photo of baby Iceland in Ikari's hand, blood trailing toward her desk, where more pictures of her daughter lay. She hadn't been reaching for safety. She'd been reaching for love. Decoya Lester, Ikari's mother, sat in shock as paramedics confirmed what she already knew. Her 17-year-old daughter was gone, killed by a single gunshot to the chest fired at close range. Neighbors gathered outside, their whispers turning to sobs as news spread. "Not Ikari," they said, "not the girl who danced like she was born for it." In the nursery, Iceland's cries pierced the silence, a heartbreaking reminder of the future stolen from both mother and child. The Dallas Police Department moved swiftly, issuing a statement by noon. 17-year-old Ikari Hood had been shot and killed at her home. The suspect? Her boyfriend, Trayvon Wright. Investigators pieced together the timeline. Takoya told police Ikiri had planned to share paternity test results with Trayvon that morning, revealing he was not Iceland's father. The locked bedroom door, the loud noise at 10:30, Iemen, the open window, all pointed to a confrontation that ended in murder. The blood pattern on the floor suggested Ikiri had moved after being shot, crawling toward her daughter's photo. She wasn't trying to escape, one officer noted. She was holding on to what mattered most. The evidence was clear, but Trayvon was gone, vanished into the streets of Dallas with a .38 caliber revolver and a delusion of justified rage. The hunt for Trayvon Wright began immediately. Dallas police, joined by U.S. Marshals, launched a grid search across southeast Oak Cliff. Officers canvassed the neighborhood, tracking Trayvon's path from the residence, but found no immediate trace. Tips poured in from neighbors, some reporting a young man running through backyards near University Hills Boulevard. By nightfall, an arrest warrant was issued, charging the 17-year-old with murder. The manhunt intensified, law enforcement agencies coordinating across the city. We will find him, a police spokesperson vowed for Ikiri and her family. As investigators worked, Lancaster High School grappled with the loss. On Monday, January 8th, the school fell silent. The announcement of Ikiri's death, shared over the intercom, confirmed what social media had already spread. Students collapsed in hallways. Teachers stood frozen at their desks. Ikiri's locker disappeared beneath flowers, handwritten notes and photos of her mid-dance. Her Tigerette drill team teammates taped her competition number to the wall, placing her polished drill boots at its base. Her death represents a great loss. Lancaster Independent School District officials stated, "We are providing counseling for students and staff impacted by this tragedy." The counseling rooms filled quickly. Dance team members huddled together, unable to imagine practices without Ikiri's infectious energy. "She corrected my form once," a freshman dancer recalled, tears streaming, "then stayed late to help me get it right. That's who she was, tough but kind." Teachers who'd watched Ikiri's grades rise alongside her dance skills sat stunned. Even students who barely knew her felt the weight of potential extinguished too soon. The school became a shrine to her memory, a testament to the light she'd brought to every corner. On January 9th, 48 hours after the shooting, the manhunt ended. U.S. Marshals apprehended Trayvon Wright, though details of his capture remained undisclosed. Jail records confirmed he was booked into Dallas County Jail that morning, charged with murder and held on a $500,000 0 cents bond. The arrest affidavit laid bare the sequence: Takoya hearing the gunshot, finding the locked door, discovering the open window, and seeing her daughter's body. It confirmed Ikiri's intent to share the paternity results, a truth that triggered Trayvon's deadly response. For the Hood family, the arrest brought no relief, only the stark reality that justice could never restore what was lost. The community's grief found expression on January 10th when hundreds gathered on Lancaster High's practice field for a balloon release ceremony. Ikiri's family stood at the center, her dance uniform displayed on a stand, her competition medals glinting in the Texas sun. As dozens of balloons rose into the sky, the crowd formed a circle, their silence heavy with shared loss. "This is amazing," Ikoya said through tears. "It shows the impact Ikiri had. Her name alone brings this. The balloons carried messages of love, but they couldn't carry away the pain." For Ikiri's 7 siblings, the loss was a wound that deepened with each passing hour. They vowed to rally around Iceland, now motherless at 3 weeks old. "She hasn't slept. She's not eating," Ikiri's sister said, cradling the infant. "She's missing her mom." The family faced the daunting task of ensuring Iceland would know the mother who'd loved her so fiercely. Photos, videos, stories of Ikiri's dance routines, these would become Iceland's inheritance, a way to keep her mother's spirit alive. The investigation raised haunting questions. What drove Trayvon to such violence? Experts pointed to the psychological impact of the paternity revelation. When someone builds their identity around a role like fatherhood, a domestic violence counselor explained, losing it can feel like public humiliation. For someone prone to control, that's a trigger. Trayvon's history with Ikiri, 2 years of volatility marked by jealousy and documented domestic violence, set the stage. The paternity test was the final spark, igniting a rage he'd been nursing long before that Sunday. Dallas's dance community also mourned. Studios across the city shared tributes, recognizing the potential lost. "Ikiri was a star," one instructor said. "She could have gone so far." Her peers at Next Level Community Dance Group recalled her work ethic, her ability to make every routine feel like a story. The tragedy prompted soul-searching. How many warning signs had been missed? Could someone have intervened? Akiri's sister spoke to reporters, her voice heavy with hindsight. If you're in a relationship that feels wrong, please leave. Talk to someone. Your mom, your teacher, anyone. Don't wait. The legal process began, but for Ikari's family, no courtroom outcome could heal their loss. Trayvon faced a murder charge, his future now tied to a moment of irreversible violence. The community grappled with broader questions. How do we protect young people from relationships that turn deadly? How do we teach them to recognize control disguised as love? Ikari's death was a wake-up call, a reminder that domestic violence doesn't discriminate by age or circumstance. As the balloons faded into the sky, attendees noticed Iceline in her grandmother's arms, her tiny face mirroring Ikari's, the same determined jaw, the same curious eyes. In that infant, Ikari's legacy lived on, a spark of hope amid the grief. But the pain of her absence lingered, a wound that would never fully heal. We're dealing with two kids who had a baby, Ikari's sister told reporters. Emotions were high, it was domestic violence. I just wish I knew why he did it. Have you ever seen a community come together in the face of loss, turning grief into action? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire someone watching. Ikari's death left a scar on Dallas, but it also ignited a resolve to honor her memory. As we move forward, we'll explore the lessons her story teaches us and the steps we can take to prevent another tragedy. Stay with us, because Ikari Hood's life was more than a headline. It's a call to protect the vulnerable among us. Subscribe to Shadows of Crime and join us as we seek light in the darkness. Part 5, Legacy and Warning. A life as vibrant as Ikari Hood's should have stretched across decades, filling stages with dance, homes with laughter, and a little girl's heart with a mother's love. Instead, her story ended at 17, cut short by a single act of violence that left a community grieving and a baby motherless. But Ikari's light didn't die on January 7, 2024. It lives on in her daughter, her family, and the lessons her story demands we learn. Welcome back to Shadows of Crime. If you're new here, hit subscribe now, because Ikari's legacy is a beacon that could guide someone out of danger. Ikari Hood was more than a victim. She was a force of nature, a dancer whose movements told stories, a sister who connected her family, a mother who saw her newborn as a partner in her dreams. In her 17 years, she packed a lifetime of love and ambition, her notebooks filled with choreography, her heart set on college stages. 3 weeks into motherhood, she transformed her bedroom into a space where art and love coexisted. A crib beside dance trophies, baby clothes alongside. She whispered to Iceland about the moves they'd share, her dreams growing bigger because her daughter was watching. That future was stolen by Trayvon Wright, a boy whose need for control turned love into violence. But Ikari's story isn't defined by how it ended. It's defined by who she was and the impact she left behind. At Lancaster High School, her absence is a wound. Her locker, now a shrine of flowers and notes, stands as a reminder of her presence. Her Tigerette drill team teammates practice with her spirit in their steps, her competition number taped above her polished boot. Ikari was tough but kind, a teammate said. She made us better. Her dance instructors saw a professional in the making, her potential a flame that burned bright until the end. For Ikari's family, the grief is unimaginable. Her mother, Sequoia Lester, replays that Sunday morning, the sound of the gunshot, the sight of her daughter's body. Her 7 siblings grapple with a void where their vibrant sister once stood. Yet, they've made a vow to raise Iceland with the love Ikari poured into her brief 3 weeks as a mother. She's got Ikari's eyes, Sequoia said at the balloon release, holding her granddaughter close. Her spirit still here? Ikari, now the heart of their family, is Ikari's living legacy, a child who will grow up hearing stories of her mother's dance, her laughter, her unbreakable will. The balloon release on January 10, 2024 was more than a memorial, it was a declaration. Hundreds gathered on Lancaster High's practice field, Ikari's dance uniform displayed like a sacred relic, her medals glinting in the sun. As balloons rose into the Texas sky, the crowd stood in silence, their shared grief giving way to resolve. This is what Ikari's name means, Sequoia told reporters. She touched everyone. The community pledged to honor her not just in mourning but in action, ensuring her death would spark change. Ikari's story is a warning, a map of red flags that could save lives. Her relationship with Trayvon Wright, spanning 2 years, was a cycle of tension and release. Breakups followed by reconciliations that masked escalating control. His jealousy, his need to know her every move, his volatile reactions weren't love, they were danger. Domestic violence experts identify these patterns as common in relationships that turn deadly. You people often mistake possessiveness for commitment, one counselor explained. By the time they see the truth, they're isolated. Carrie believed she could manage Trayvon's anger, that her knowledge of him made her safe. It's a belief that traps too many. The paternity test that revealed Trayvon wasn't Iceland's father was the final trigger for Trayvon. It wasn't just a personal loss, it was a public humiliation, a threat to his identity as a father. Combined with his history of control and documented domestic violence, it created a perfect storm. Moments of rejection are the most dangerous. An expert noted when an abuser feels their power slipping, they lash out. Carrie's decision to share the truth in her bedroom with family nearby reflects a tragic misconception that familiarity can protect against violence. It can't. Teenagers face unique vulnerabilities in relationships. The intensity of young love, the pressure of social expectations, the lack of experience navigating conflict all amplify the risks. For young parents like Carrie, the stakes are even higher. Paternity disputes, financial pressures, and emotional immaturity can escalate tensions to deadly levels. Carrie's sister, speaking to reporters, urged others to heed the signs. If you're in a relationship that doesn't feel right, leave. Talk to someone, your mom, your aunt, a teacher. Don't wait until it's too late. Resources exist to help. The National Dating Abuse Helpline offers 24/7 tech support for young people, a lifeline for those unsure where to turn. School counselors are trained to provide confidential guidance, creating safe spaces to discuss relationship concerns. Community health centers often offer counseling for teenage parents, addressing the unique stresses they face. Youth-focused support groups available in many cities allow teens to share experiences without judgment. Ikari might not have known these options, but they could save someone watching this now. Communities play a critical role in prevention. Schools can teach healthy relationship dynamics alongside math and science, equipping students to recognize red flags. Extracurricular groups, sports teams, dance squads, churches can train leaders to spot signs of control or abuse. What if someone had noticed Trayvon's growing obsession with Icarie's whereabouts? What if Icarie had a mentor to guide her through that paternity conversation? These questions have no answers, but they point to strategies that could protect the next young person. Icarie's death reminds us that relationship safety is about more than physical protection. It's about the right to make choices without fear. Her dream of dancing on college stages, of opening a studio for young mothers, was a vision of freedom. That freedom was stolen, but her story can restore it for others. By sharing her truth, we amplify her voice to inspire, to connect, to rise lives on. Icarie, with her mother's determined jaw and curious eyes, is proof that Icarie's light endures, a spark that will grow into a flame. If you're watching from a place of doubt, in a relationship that feels heavy or unsafe, know this: seeking help isn't betrayal, it's survival. Reach out to a trusted adult, a hotline, a friend. If you're watching as someone who sees these patterns in a loved one's life, your awareness could be their lifeline. Communities thrive when we create spaces where asking for help carries no shame. Icarie's family learned this lesson at an unimaginable cost, but their plea is clear. Please leave. Her sister said, talk to somebody. Don't let this happen to you. What can you do to make a difference? Share Icarie's story. Post it, talk about it, let it reach someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below. Have you seen warning signs in relationships around you? What resources exist in your community for young people in trouble? Your insights could guide someone to safety. And if you're new to Shadows of Crime, subscribe now to join a community dedicated not just to uncovering darkness, but to illuminating paths to healing and prevention. Icarie Hood's life mattered. Her love for dance, her devotion to Iceland, her ability to make every person feel seen, these were gifts that should have shaped the world for decades. Her death is a tragedy, but it's also a call to action. Let's honor her by recognizing the signs she missed, by supporting those still in danger, by building a world where no one fears the person they love. As Iceland grows, surrounded by a family determined to keep Icarie's memory alive, let's ensure that her mother's story saves lives, because what happened to Icarie Hood should never happen again.